If you're a real estate investor over 50 and you're starting to wonder whether the stress is actually worth it, you know what I'm talking about. Those midnight tenant calls, the surprise furnace or water heater replacements, the retirement plan that was depending on all that passive income, but it still feels shaky. I want you to hear this. The problem isn't your properties. It's a mindset that was built for a different era. And in the next few minutes, I'm going to show you the one shift that separates investors who stay stuck from those who quietly build wealth on their own terms well into their 50s and 60s. Because believe me, I've been down this road. And it led me to discover some things about money that most people never learn. So if you've ever felt that way, believe me, you're not crazy, and I assure you, you're definitely not alone. Because a while ago, I came across an idea that really stopped me in my tracks. Now, this wasn't some investment strategy. It wasn't a new side hustle. It was a way of thinking about money that most people never hear. And when I first heard it, I realized something very uncomfortable. For years, I'd been working hard building my real estate business, but I had been thinking about money in a way that actually made wealth harder to build. Now, the interesting part is this idea didn't come from social media. It came from conversations inside of a mastermind community that I'm a part of. Places where people talk about wealth very differently than most of the world. And today I want to share these ideas with you because once you see them, you can't unsee them. Because most of us were raised with a simple formula. You work hard, you save your money, you invest carefully, maybe real estate, maybe stocks, maybe something else. And by retirement time, you're going to be made in the shade. Now that sounds all logical, right? But here's the uncomfortable truth. Hard work alone does not create wealth. If it did, waitresses and hairdressers would be millionaires. Now, believe me, that's not a slight against waitresses and hairdressers either, because we all know how hard they work. But we also know that that's not how the world works. You can work for 40 years, you can sacrifice time with your friends and family, you can do everything that the old school world taught you how to do, and you still end up feeling like your financial future isn't anywhere close to what you dreamed it'd be. And you kind of end up in this no man's land of not really broke, but a long ways away from where you thought you'd be at this time of your life. And that's exactly where I found myself. I'd spent years building a thriving real estate investment business. I thought it was a great play. Passive income, long-term wealth, security. But what I discovered was something a lot of real estate investors eventually learned the hard way. Those properties come with surprises. Unexpected repairs, surprise vacancies and tenant drama, and expenses that just show up out of nowhere. And suddenly, your passive income doesn't feel so passive anymore, or profitable for that matter. Now, that experience forced me to ask a deeper question. Why do some people build wealth seemingly very smoothly, while others feel like they're always pushing uphill? And here's the idea that really made me think. Most people don't struggle with money because they aren't smart enough. They struggle because of the way they were programmed to think about money. Just think about all the phrases we grew up hearing. We can't afford that. Money doesn't grow on trees. You have to work hard for every dollar. Now, in fairness, none of these are evil ideas, but over time they create something subtle and very deadly. They create a mindset of scarcity, a mindset where money always feels limited, and to earn it feels selfish, where every decision feels defensive, where you're too busy protecting what you have instead of creating something bigger. And when you operate from that place, your decisions start to reflect it. You play small. You avoid the opportunities. You hold on to things that no longer work, sometimes even investments or real estate properties. Because believe me, I certainly saw this in myself. I had built my whole identity around being a real estate investor. And even when the numbers weren't working the way I wanted them to, part of me still held on to that identity because that's how I always thought wealth was supposed to be built. Now, inside the mastermind community that I'm part of, I started hearing people talk differently. They weren't constantly asking, how do I hold on to what I have? Instead, they started asking questions like this. What opportunities exist right now? Where's the world going? What kind of systems create leverage? And now those are very different questions, and different questions create different conversations. People who build wealth consistently don't just work harder, they think differently. They see possibility where the rest of us just see risk. They experiment, they test, they build systems because systems equals freedom. and they adapt when the world changes. And that was a big realization for me because the world has changed. We're living in trust economies now instead of the traditional transactional economies. The internet's changed how businesses work. Digital platforms are changing how income is created. And suddenly, wealth creation isn't limited to traditional paths anymore. Now, here's another part that really stuck with me. Your financial life follows your identity. If you see yourself as an employee, you're always going to want to trade time for money and feel okay with that. If you see yourself as an investor, you're going to want to buy assets. If you see yourself as an entrepreneur, you're going to want to build systems that produce income. Now, for years, I saw myself primarily as a real estate investor, and that identity shaped every decision I made. But eventually, I started asking myself a different question. What if wealth in the modern world is built differently? What if the new assets aren't just buildings and land, but digital systems, platforms, audiences, online communities? And that question changed everything for me. Because once you allow yourself to see the new possibilities, your decisions start to change. And now here's another idea that I really like. Every new path has a phase where nothing looks like it's working yet. It's this phase beneath the soil. Because we all know when you plant a seed, you don't see the results immediately. There's a period of quiet growth that nobody else notices. And that's where you're learning, you're testing, you're building something new. And quite honestly, a lot of people get discouraged and quit right there. Why? Because they expect results immediately. But every meaningful change in life goes through that invisible stage. And that's important for folks like us to hear. Because sometimes we think, yeah, it's too late. It's too risky. Oh, I should have started on this years ago, right? But the truth is, the moment you start thinking differently is the moment new possibilities open up. And if you're watching this right now and you're in your 50s or your 60s, I want you to hear this clearly. You're not behind. You're not too late. And you're definitely not the only one who's questioned the traditional path before. The world is changing faster than ever, and the people who do well in this new world aren't always the ones who work the hardest. They're the ones who rethink how wealth is created. They're the ones who are ready to learn new ideas, to explore new systems, to stay curious about what's possible. And that's really why I want to share these conversations with you here on my channel. Because the ideas that I'm learning inside my mastermind rooms are ideas I wish somebody had shared with me decades ago. Ideas about leverage, ideas about systems, ideas about creating this freedom that we all seek to make our golden years truly golden. And if this kind of thinking resonates with you, here's the next step that I want you to take. Go down to the description and grab your own copy of my Freedom Formula Blueprint. It's totally free. It's about a 5-minute read, and it will give you the nuts and the bolts of what it takes to create retirement wealth without all the stress of another real estate deal or having to work another decade to get there. And the second step I want you to take is to subscribe to my channel, because these are the kinds of conversations I want to keep having here. Conversations about building wealth without sacrificing the life and the adventures that you actually wanted to live. And honestly, isn't that the whole point of life? So once again, folks, I'm Harry. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.